So let's see, I guess we're ready to go right in. We had a break right before this, so let's get right into working in Revit. So let me share my other screen. Get this closed. Somebody has to give him a name. I don't have a name for him yet. Okay.
You should build him and put him on the front lawn of Walter's Wolf. That'd be cool.
Well, the great thing is we can do that because we have all this data. We have a bill of materials, like we have panel data that could go right to the fab team, and they could actually build all these panels, and we could build this guy if we wanted to. So that's what's so awesome about it, right?
A lot of unique panel fabs right there.
Yeah, a lot. So what I'm doing, I'm going to just have a split screen here. I'm going to show you the basic steps of what we're going to walk through. This is higher level steps because I'm going to walk you through it right now. Again, all of this stuff, if you do go to the portal, let's see if I can get that. Well, I won't worry about bringing it up right now, but we do have instructions for all of this more in depth on that engineering training page. Okay, so where we're going to start, let me move this over just a little bit more. A little bit more room here. What's going on in the chat?
You want us to open Revit?
Okay, so yeah, so let's start. We're going to model the Parapet Cap first. So go ahead and get your 2019 Revit open, and hopefully you did get the files copied locally, so they're handy. I just say throw them on your desktop. And one of the first things we'll go at, yeah, so I can see, I wonder if I can see, let me move this over here. And I'm just going to wait a second, and I'm going to look in the participants list, and if there's a lot, you know.
What do you want us to open first on Revit?
So I'm just giving everybody a sec to get Revit open, and then once you do get it open, let's open up that Zoomsite, what do I call it, Parapet Cap or Parapet practice file.
Is it the model or it's a family?
This is the actual model file. We're going to build our Parapet Caps into a model first, and then we'll edit the Parapet Cap. So when you first open this file, you're going to see the turn on show mass mode, which is on the massing and site tab. Because when you first open a file in Revit, if it has masses in it, by default, they don't show. And so when you go to your 3D view, you would not see the mass. So it would look like this. So we just want to turn it on just so you guys can see that there is a mass.
Where it is again?
So, I mean, this isn't critical to what we're doing. I'm just saying turn it on so you can see it. But on massing and site, there's the show mass mode. So it's a toggle. You can just pick on it to turn it off and on. Again, this isn't critical to what we're doing, but it's to show you that this is that file where we have those curtain panels attached. And if you wanted to play with those in here later after we're done with this, they're there to mess with and all that. So I just want to make sure anybody raise your hand in the participants if you're not ready to get going. And if it's looks like it's good to go, then we'll keep moving. This shouldn't take us too long, but I just want to make sure everybody can play along here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create that curtain wall at the level where the Parapet Cap is supposed to be. So what I do typically, I'm going to go to my south elevation. So over here in the browser, I'm going to just double click on that south view. And I can see that my parapet pretty much is sitting on level 3. So to place those walls that we're going to do in this method, I'm going to go to level 3. Because when I build a wall on level 3, it starts at that point and is going upward. So you get to that level where you want this wall to grow from. If I started at level 1, the Parapet Cap would be on the ground floor. So once you're in level 3, we're going to build a wall. We're going to build some curtain walls around this profile. So to do that, you go to the architecture tab up here on the top left. It's the most furthest over. And wall is the first option. But you want to hit that drop down and make sure you grab architectural. So you go to architecture tab, wall, and architectural. When you do that, It should show curtain wall W75 unit by default. It's fine for what we're doing. It works because it doesn't have any pre-made grids. If it isn't set that way, you would hit that drop down there, and you can find, if you just scroll up and down this list, you should be able to find W75 unit. So when we're building these walls, just like with anything in Revit, you want to work in the right direction. So we're going to go clockwise around the top of this wall, starting just at this back corner here. I'm just going to pick right on this little corner. I'm not being, we're not being super critical about joints and things at this point. This is the concept of placing a wall and putting in the caps. So I'm going to pick on that point. And now you can see I've got a wall attached to my mouse. Right? I'm just going to drag it down here. And I can either pick on the corner with my little corner snap. If that reference plane highlights, it means I'm going to land perpendicular on it, and I don't have to be necessarily as careful. If I get up here, it's going to go funny. But if you get close right here, it's basically snapping to that. So I'm going to pick right there. And then I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to go down to my next corner. And I'm just going to keep building this wall, carrying it all the way around. So now I'm going to pick on this corner down here. And we'll go over to the other corner. Pick on that one. And then go up to our last corner. And then I'm just going to hit cancel to let go of that wall tool. Everybody okay so far? Any questions? Okay. All right, great. So now to see what you've done, oh, one thing I did not mention, sorry. When you do place a wall for something like this, it doesn't have to be very big. So I'm going to go back to the wall architectural tool and just show you that right now it's set to 8 inches. So that was something I should have told you about. It's easy to change afterwards. If we go to the 3D view, you're going to see, whoops, double click on that 3D view, and you'll see our little short walls. If we had started and not set that, you might have a wall that looks like this, 20 feet, right? So if you did do that, because I forgot to mention it, and yours is, oh, it should be set. Actually, I think it's preset in this file anyway. Just go ahead and set that to like 8 inches. So you should have something that looks like this. So what we're going to do, well, what we did in the video, switched out the first one. So before I do too much, I like to switch out the first one with the family I'm going to place in there, and then just do a little check. So we're not going to grab all these and switch them out yet. So to grab that panel, that glazed panel, when you first hover over it in this in Revit, you get that dashed highlight, and that means you're selecting the wall. So with the tab key, we just keep tabbing until you get that solid blue outline, and you see how it says curtain panels system panel in the little hover. That tells me I'm grabbing that panel. So I'm just going to tab again until I get there. And when I have it highlighted, I can see up here in my properties that it is the glazed panel, and this is where what we want to see. And then we're just going to hit that drop down and grab the appropriate Parapet Cap family. So get that glazed unit selected, and then go to that type drop down and grab Parapet Cap version 2019. And then just let it go. So we've switched out that glazed panel with a family. But let's check how we're doing on where it's placed before we go with building parapets all the way around our whole building. So if you go to level 1 or any of those levels, you'll see we have a section cut, and you can pick and right click. There's a couple different ways, and say go to view. You should be able to double click on the bubble, I believe, to get to that view as well. So when we look at that wall section, if we zoom in, just with the scrolly wheel, I just zoom in up here, and I can see that my parapet's sitting right on the top of my wall, and I want a 3/4 inch joint there. So you can either move the wall up. It just depends on how you've planned your part family. You could leave the wall where it is, and in your part family, have it sitting where it needs to be relative to this. There's lots of different tricks, but we're just going to move the whole wall up 3/4 inch. So with the wall selected, and the way I know I have the wall selected is because I've got these wall grips and I've got the blue dotted line, is I'm going to come over here to the properties, and the base offset, we're going to set to 3/4 inch. So that moves the whole wall up. If I had just picked on the wall and dragged it, the top of the wall stays the same height and everything else shrinks. So I want to move the whole wall, or can shrink. So I just moved it instead. So once you know, now you're like, okay, I'm good to go. I've got my wall where it needs to be. You can either select the rest of the walls manually and do the same thing. Tell them to have that face offset of 3/4 of an inch. Get them
How
all
did you
in the
get
same
back to
place.
that view, Amy?
You go over here to views and go to 3D.
3D. Okay, thank you.
So, and then, but there's also the great tool. It's on the modify tab. I gotta get to my modify. So match properties will match everything about, from one thing to the next, just like in AutoCAD. So hit that match properties. It's on the clipboard panel. It's kind of in a weird place. But if you click on that and then you select the wall you want to match to, which is the one we just fixed first, and then you select the other walls, it will move them up. So we matched the wall properties, not the parapet cap. We just matched the wall properties themselves. So now if I pick on one of those other walls, you'll see that it's set to that 3/4 of an inch. So a couple different ways to switch out the rest of the panels. I could also use match properties, pick on this curtain panel here, and then select each of these. Or I could have picked all the glazed units by, if I do a right click. So select that one, right click, select all instances visible in view, and then switch it out. It's, like anything, there's a bunch of different ways to do it. So now we have all of our parapet caps in. You should have something looking like that. And then we're going to go a little further and we're going to add our outside corner parts. So in order to do that, let's add some joints. So to add joints in any kind of curtain panel, you want the curtain grid tool. And again, that's on the architecture tab up at the top left. So on that architecture tab on the build panel, curtain grid is right here and the middle on the end here. And you have options to place all segments, one segments, and stuff like that. But we're just going to use all segments because we're just working in these little short walls here. So I'm going to add a grid here. So all I'm doing is just picking on that wall that we can't really see. It's kind of highlighted, but it's finding that wall and it's letting me add these joints. So if you just hover over, and then you can see you've got temporary dimensions that show up. And so that's how we're creating our panel joints. One thing I didn't really mention, but I'll just highlight right now, is if you pick on that panel, it does have joint left side and right side adjustments, but they're just set to 1/4 inch by default. But that is flexible. There's some old stuff in here too. So now we've got our joints in, and again, that's architecture curtain grid. Anytime you want to add a joint, and just go to curtain grid. But now we're going to do a tab select, and let's just switch out one of these panels first. We're going to switch out, if you get around to the left side, we'll switch out this panel here to have a mitered panel. So to grab it, once again, right now I'm hovering and you can see the wall is current, but I'm going to tab until I have that part highlighted and then select it. So now I'm going to change out this type. So right now you can see it's the standard part. So I'm going to hit my drop down arrow and I'm going to scroll up to where I can see the family name, and you'll see that there are two types, a corner left and a corner right. These are pre-made, pre-mitered parts. So in that parapet cap OC90, you want to grab corner right, and it puts a nice miter on it and changes that part. So this is changing out with the type selector. If you tab over the one to the right of it and go to that drop down, you can grab the corner left. And now you have a nice outside corner finished parapet. And it looks good all the way around because of the way the family's built. It's just being cut with the void straight down. So I'll go to the next corner and we'll just go through that again. I'm going to tab until I've got the part highlighted. Go to my parapet cap OC90, grab my corner right. Tab this guy and grab corner left. And we'll do one more time here. We have a bunch of options for these right now as they're made right now, but again, these are going to get updated to have fewer family types, I believe. So I'm just switching these out so that the proper corner families are in there. And now we have a nice finished parapet cap. So I have just a couple minutes for this portion. And does anybody want me to go back to anything? We all good?
When I
Build
do
a
the
wall.
match properties, it's not letting me select the wall type. It's only giving me the panel. When I tab
wanna-
through, it doesn't let me tab through to the wall type on the other 3 walls.
Do you want to share your screen?
Okay. Yep. You bet I do. Of course I do.
Let's see what's going on. It's not, okay, I'm gonna do remote control and see
And
what's
so,
going on.
and so just so you know, so when I undo it, right, it does show that there are curtain walls there, right? So they're there, but somehow it's not selected in the match properties.
Okay, I'm gonna do remote control real quick and just see what's going on.
Oh, approve.
Thank you. Okay, so wall, 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 and then we go match properties. Grab this wall. That's strange.
Well, even if they're set to the same parameters already, it won't pick it up.
Oh,
So
there it
you,
was. There
you
it was.
want
Oh, you're right, Gabe. You're right. I think you're right. If it's already matches, it won't let you select it. So let's set it to 0 just to make that one go back. And now we'll try match properties. Grab this and grab that. Yep, that's what it is. Thank you, Gabe.
So I have to go back and change those other ones to 0?
So everything, you're good right now. You're everything's set up. You're actually good to go. So
How come it's not showing up though? Or is that just a refresh thing? Or
you do have the joint at the bottom of those walls. So they look good.
except that you don't.
The match properties doesn't match the parapet caps. It matches the wall.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I wasn't sure. I didn't realize you're talking about the parts now. Yeah, you still have to go through. We've just done the walls. Correct, that's right. Sorry.
So it's tough to manually add. For some reason, it looked like those just magically appeared, but okay, I got you.
No, we can, so let's just go ahead and select one of those. Or you can do, okay, let's do match properties here like you wanted, but this time let's grab the family. So go back to your match property command. And now hover over that and tab until the part highlights. Okay, perfect, select that. Now select and tab over that.
Oh, see, I missed that part. All right, sweet.
Okay, cool. And
Amy, I have a question.
Yep.
Somehow I missed getting the part transferred over to the first wall that we drew.
So when you have a wall, are you saying how to get the part in here?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just switch this back to what it would be when you first start. Where are you? Glazed. So I'll just do it on this little bit.
Yeah,
so when
yeah.
you first have the wall, you've got the wall, and then you just got this glazed panel. So tab until that highlights solid. And when you select on it, it should say up here on the properties that, or your properties might be on the left, that it's a glazed panel, right? And then in that drop down, this drop down has all the different kinds of families and things for us to choose from in this project. It's a little library. So we hit that drop down and you scroll down until you find the Parapet Cap version 2019 type or family, and under it are the types in that family. So you want to grab this guy right underneath that.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have the right family in there. Oh,
One way to know if you have families loaded properly or not is over in the browser. If you go down to families and expand it, so I'll just expand it. And if you go to the curtain panels and expand that one, you'll know if you have them. I mean, they should have been in the template file. It should have all been loaded, but I'm just saying this is one way you can check.
so I need to
if you
switch
have them.
to that.
So just, again, just tab until the glazed unit is highlighted, and then go to your type properties and switch it out. Okay, So we'll keep moving now. The next step is, let's just go ahead and save our file. We're going to update the family. So say you get a model from the sales model team and it's got our standard Parapet Cap in there to cover getting that material, but we don't know what the final design is. We're just close. So now we want to open up that Parapet Cap family. So if you go, and you can open files from the Revit file itself, but I feel like best practice is always to open it from the library. And for some reason, 2019 gets really heavy when you try to open stuff for some reason. But on your desktop, find your Parapet Cap version 2019 file. Slow. So this is just our standard library Parapet Cap right now. It's just basically a sort of a template to get you going. And you can see, if you open it from our server, you'll see that it has a note that says edit this profile to match your panel profile. Pick on the shape and select edit extrusion, and then make it the shape you want. When I have to do this type of update, I like to first find out if there's a DWG, a CAD file, or something somewhere that I can actually bring into the background and trace over, because it goes that much quicker than trying to have to figure out what each dimension is. So even whether you have a CAD file or maybe you have a Revit model from the architect, you can go into that Revit model from the architect, cut a section, and export that section to a DWG and bring it in here and use it to get it close, close to what it needs to be. Or if you have a final detail from the designers on the project, you can bring that in too. So I'm just going to delete this node. I'm just going to pick on it and hit the delete key. Oops. Get that out of the way. So you can see that this is just, if I go to the 3D view, this is just our basic part. So I'm going to go back to the left view. This is where I like to work. And I'm going to insert that CAD file that it was in that folder. So we do insert up here in the upper left, import CAD. So we're going to bring it in temporarily. We're going to use it as an underlay, and then we're going to delete it back out. So I'm going to go grab mine. I'm going to use all out of order. Let's see. Where did I put it? Did I put it on the desktop? I think I put it on the desktop. Parapet Cap custom. Now, when you bring in that DWG, before you pick open and do all that, you find your file. It's really important to go down to this checkbox and check it for current view only. If you don't do that, the DWG is going to come into your 3D views as well. And when you load it into the project, it's going to show up in the project. When you go back to your family and go, oops, I left it in there, and you delete it, I think it takes it out of the whole thing. So if you do need it in there and you want to keep it in there, like for some of the other stuff we do, this is important to do. For what we're doing right now, we're going to delete it anyway. But I just want to point that out, that if you are bringing in CAD files, just be aware of that. Everything else, we just take in the defaults and we can just say open. And you can see if I pick on this, it's pinned. And if you look over here, here's my import Parapet Cap custom drawing. So I've selected it. I know I've got my DWG. And it comes in right where I need it in this case, for purposes of making this easy. So here's our old profile, our standard library, and here's the shape we want to update it to. So in that left view, you pick on the shape and you come up here, and modify should already be the current tab, and just pick on this edit extrusions, pretty much straight up, the edit extrusion option. And you'll know you're in it correctly when you have this pink outline. It means we're actually in the shape, modifying the profile that will extrude into 3D. So there's a couple ways to go about this. You just find what works best for you, but I'm going to go left to right and hold down my control key and just delete all those other lines, because I'll just recreate new ones. There are lots of different ways to do quick updates and edits, but this is just to show you the trace tool, or pick lines they call it. So I like to use this a lot. I'll just do pick lines, and then I'm going to hover over this and I'm going to tab. I'm going to keep tabbing to get as much stuff as I can. Once I see how much, like what it's going to give me, I'll pick. And it already picked all of those lines for me. You don't need to constrain. Don't worry about all these little padlocks. The less constraining you do, the better. I feel like there's potential to over constrain stuff, and it can really bite you later on. So you want to, don't worry, you can just ignore those. And then I just need to still pick the upper line And then I'm going to cancel, and I'm going to go to modify trim extend, which is like putting a 0 fillet on the corners, and just pick my lines to get that sharp corner. So I'll just mention here again, the reason for the sharp corners is when the takeoff program reads these spaces that we want for the takeoff data, we want it to get these all the way out to that extent. And then the fab team, when they go in, they'll do the curving, but we need to make sure they're getting accurate geometry and not getting little radius things. This also makes it nice when you're dimensioning in Revit. You don't accidentally pick wrong thing. We don't really, it looks nice to have those curved radiuses on there, but that's one of the things Steve said is no radiuses, and it's a good point. It's a good idea. And it keeps it simple. It's less drafting, it's less work. So once you've got your lines all updated and everything's closed off, you can just hit that green check mark, which is finish edit mode. Now your part's updated. If you go to your 3D view, there's your bigger part. But we want to get rid of that DWG file. And right now it's kind of hard to grab it because you've got a shape and a DWG, but you can just do a crossing. I'm just holding down my mouse button and doing a crossing. Now it's grabbed everything. I'm going to hold down my shift key and go from left to right to deselect the extrusion. So again, I can just do a quick crossing. This is just a quick way to get rid of it. It's grabbed everything. So now I'm going to hold down shift to remove all of my parts. You can see up here that I only have that DWG selected. I do need to unpin it because I can't delete it until I unpin it. So you'll probably see a little push pin here. You can also come up to the modify tab and unpin it up there and then just delete it. So one thing that happens if you're working with a library part and you modify the shape is even though the shape had all the yellow surfaces painted by for you by default in the template, if you modify the extrusion, you do need to go back in and it recognizes it as the original material. So we'll go through and we're going to paint this now to make it so the takeoff program won't read all of these surfaces. If it reads even the slightest little edge, it's more data that they're looking at and getting confused by because it doesn't matter. So the main things on a parapet cap that we want to keep are, these face dimensions. And like I said earlier, I keep the drip leg in this case. We'll just do this whole profile and we'll keep the drip leg as part of the data because that's not really a tab, that's part of the design. So to paint it, it's kind of in a weird place. Zach found this and it was a really great way to make this a lot easier for the takeoff program. On the modify tab, on the geometry panel, it's right here. It's this little checkered ball and cube thing. So that's the paint tool. So in this model, in this family, we already have the paint color we need, the paint or the material we need. It'll be in the list when we pull this up. So if you scroll down, there's this take off, ignore panel face. I'll just go into the materials really quick. If you go manage materials, you can see down here is this take off, ignore panel face, all one word, case sensitive. This is what the takeoff program is looking at. We made it a nice bright color so it's easy to see. But that's already in your family. So the only time you ever have to create that is if you're making a brand new family. That's not in our library. So anyway, we go back to modify, geometry panel, paint tool, select take off, ignore panel face, all the way at the bottom. And as long as it's highlighted, that's current. And you just start picking surfaces. So I'm just picking all these interior surfaces that I don't want the takeoff program to read, and including this little back edge down here. It started out yellow, but when we modified the part, it went back to the default material. So everything on the inside and then both end edges should be the yellow material. And all these other pieces of data will get picked up by that takeoff program. And again, things like the tabs can change. That's why we're not going to totally worry about them right now anyway. Designs change, details change. So if this changed and got deeper, we don't want to have to go back into the part family and update it and put it through the takeoff program and run it through all those routines all over again just for a tab change, right? So just leave it a default 1 inch. And when the panel team goes to work on this, they'll look at the details and they'll see what it needs to be at that point. That's the kind of stuff where you go just enough into your modeling to get what matters in there, because it's probably going to change downstream. So that leaves it flexible, and that leaves it less change management to have to go back too far. So once you've finished painting those surfaces, you can just pick on the done button and it'll close you out of that command. And then you save your part. So does anybody want me to go back over any of that?
If the panel is already has this yellow surface inside, it means it's ready to go, right?
Yes. So if some with what we just did, some surfaces stayed yellow because we didn't modify them. We just stretched them up. But we totally created new lines depending on how you did it. If you moved the lines up instead of like, if say in here, let me just go back. Let's do it like I do.
I see, right, not all of them. So can you show please again how to change the color of the,
Sure.
yeah, I thought it was everything, but it's only one wall is yellow inside.
Okay, I can do that. So what I was going to say is, if you did this instead, if you know how to work in Revit and you did this like move
No,
instead.
I didn't do it. I did what you were showing.
But if so, to say that if you did that instead, you might not lose as many surfaces. So let me go back and update this. So it just depends on what you've lost. So let me just recreate this again really quick, just to run through it one more time, and then we'll go to that and then show you that again. So let me go ahead and fill it this. I'm not going to worry about deleting the DWG again. Go to 3D. Okay, so when you're in your 3D view, you want to go to the Modify tab. Go to the Geometry panel right here where the cut and join is. And this little funky little button that's kind of tiny here, it's called Paint. When this dialog box opens, you want to scroll down and find, it should be highlighted already in yours, but you can't see the whole name because it's a long name, but take O ... base, make sure that's current. Then all you have to do is just pick. Now you're just picking surfaces. So it's ready for you to start selecting what you want to paint. You've dipped your paintbrush into paint, and now you're going around and just touching on surfaces. If I do that, it takes it to that. If I go back to aluminum,
Got it.
Once you have that updated and you save it, when you load it back into the project, this is where the beauty of having families created and not a lot of in-place models starts to really pay off. So I'm going to say when you load it into a project, you say overwrite existing version and parameters. I always just overwrite everything. I never just do this. I just do everything just in case. And when I switch to my 3D view, you're going to see that part updated. So you start it in sales with something generic. You go through and you get it into operations, you update that profile. If you don't change the family name and reload it, but you save it, I should have emphasized this, you want to save it custom to your project. So you open it from the library, you save it as your custom for your project. You could save it as the same name, but just not in our library folder. And then when you reload it, it'll overwrite right over the top. If you want to save it as a new name, you would just have to select the old parts and switch them out to your new custom part name. So in this case right now, you would want to go through and do the same thing to the outside corner family. You'd want to go in and update that profile with that same exact method, save it, reload it, or load in the new one or whatever, and all these would update. But again, that's part of what we're going to make even better than this with this more of a universal single family. That'll be coming this year, I think. Look at that some more.
Can you use the match tool here?
You can. Well, this one you don't need. Well, what do you mean? Before I answer that.
Well, you already make the new family. Can you just match that to the rest of the panels not being updated?
Anywhere the family already exists in the project, it will update. So if I had this Parapet Cap running around the whole top of the building and I edit the one family and reload it, it will update everywhere that family exists. This outside corner is a different family right now. So if I match properties between these two, it will set that one to an outside corner. So just to show you, I go modify, match properties, and I grab this guy, and then I pick on that. It turns it back to a typical, typical part. So we do have to physically go in and edit that profile, which is why we want to, definitely improve on this. We have fewer families to modify. You update the profile once, and it's good everywhere. But just understanding that family, it's like it's like an XREF almost, right? So you've got your XREF living in all your different locations, and you edit that XREF in the one place, and everywhere else it lives, it updates. It's the same thing with the family. Everywhere that instance of this family Parapet Cap 2019 lives is going to update, but only that family name.
So Amy, regarding the return, I would like to say, suppose if we are creating this profile from the detail itself, why we are not leaving the returns on, particularly on the Parapet family, because the returns, if you drawing the profile exactly from the details, actual detail, then on the fab on the fab end, it will be less work to create that return, correct?
It will, that's correct. So we just have to talk about how much do we want to front load this because of change management. And so again, from Steve originally, and so Steve can chime in on this if he's still there or whatever, he didn't want to put basic tabs in, like the little 1-inch returns and stuff. So if we want to, and then, it's really like anything, it comes down to, if you do a lot in this part, then if something changes, you have to go back and update things and run it all the way through the takeoff program again, right? So,
yeah, but on Parapet, I think the profile, if we are changing the profile, we have to change the detail also.
But again,
yeah, I mean.
But it's just, Katan, it's just mapping to a panel in Inventor, right? So you can add all that extra stuff, but it's not going to help anybody down the line. If there's 3 surfaces that you're trying to convey, the takeoff group's making a panel type, they're just pulling that data in and making that panel with all the extra stuff on their end. So we were trying to make it simpler for drafting to not have to add all that extra stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. So on Miss, I was just concerned about the Parapet. Let us not put the side returns, but because it is a part of the profile.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I'm talking about the profile itself. Because it is guided by the details. So I don't know, we can leave it or not, because that will be only single type of family. That profile will always remain same.
If something changes, it's all about change management. Just knowing, and I mean, if you do it there,
I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah.
All right, guys,
so,
can I interrupt here for a second? We're at noon, so it is lunchtime. Can we shelve the discussion for a second, let everyone order their lunch, do whatever for, say, 5 minutes, and then come back here and continue the discussion? Because the discussion is important and it's good. This is all new to almost everyone on the team, so I want everyone to see it, but I also don't want to hold everyone here starving. I know Damien really needs his lunch at a specific time. Right, Damien?
Yeah, and again, this panel, yeah, so that's great. I was just gonna say one last thing. If you guys want to play around in here, the other curtain panel basic families are in here for you to mess around with. If you want help at another time and want to walk through it again, I'm happy to help you walk through it. And again, it's all on the training site. So anyway, thank you for playing along.
All right, I'm gonna unmute everyone. Everyone, big round of applause for Amy and the panel team.
Yay, panel.
Good job.
Amy,
I really like this. This is
I love it.
easier.
Yeah, very nice.
All right,
I'd like
muting
to
everyone.
I'm excited.
Go get your lunch. Come back at what time is it? Let's say 12:10, and we'll continue the discussion and the Q&A. Are there any other questions with the panel process that we just saw? Feedback?
No.
Amy sharing her screen.
Zach, sorry for chewing. I was just wondering, I saw this copy pasting thing. Do you think it would be possible without kind of this manual copy pasting information, just like we do?
Absolutely. I just
units?
didn't, I left it wide open at the moment. There's still a lot of things that could be done and automated. We just needed to see how the process would look overall.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where we're at right now. And so we're flexible to changes later. So right now, yeah, it's a copy and paste out of Excel, but it could be a button that imports into Inventor. It could be the takeoff program driving Inventor directly. There's a lot of different things that we could do. But this way, it gives us a good little stopping point so we can see how we want that final piece to look, how the connection to Inventor looks.
Because adding to what Zach was saying is sometimes when, Juan and I were making the panels, a certain face may have been missed when it was painted. So then when we look at the data, it comes off a little weird. And so then when we try to put it into points, it gives us a chance to look it over and say, okay, it should be this kind of shape. And if it's not looking like that, then it gives us a chance to go back and then reprint data.
Because it would be some kind of numbers what would look weird. You would see it there.
Yeah, like because if it adds an extra face, then there's more points that's involved. So it could become an X12, say if there's that many points. And if you miss a face, it could end up being like an X16, or you end up having like 20 points involved. And so it reduces the number of points so that it makes the panel a lot more, easier to work with, rather than if we don't have that check, which is right now, like when we're exporting the data, we can look at it and double check and see if it's right.
Yeah, going to what Andrew said, like it's pretty obvious in either the takeoff browser or in that Excel file when you're expecting a bunch of 2-fold panels and then you start getting 5-fold, 6-fold, and like weird panels. Then some of the faces aren't painted so that they're ignored.
Yeah, like in the beginning, we were getting 24-point panels, and we're just like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's extremely critical that the faces are painted correctly. Otherwise, it's a lot of troubleshooting on our end.
One of the things that came up was, can we have a curtain panel family have 4 joint sides, labels different colors, so the drafter is more clear when modeling. And somebody had answered Revit already displays a point number on an adaptive panel. So I just want to show in the instructions, we do have, where'd it go? We have some stuff in the appendix of the instructions to kind of help map out the way these families work. So point 1, point 2, point 3. So joint 1 is here, joint 2, joint 3. These points do show up. Somebody pointed out when you're in Revit, on the adaptive families, that these points do show up. We have up to a 7-point. We made a 7-point part for Matilda a week or 2 ago. So this is going to get updated. But the way those parts look in Revit, just open up one of these guys.
Yeah, Amy?
Yep.
Yeah, I think the question is for me. So my original question is asking the joint showing in the mask method. So it's the current panel family inside the mask. But the adaptive panel, yeah, one is also mentioned to me is the joint can be showing in the adaptive panel.
Let's see, let's look at that again then. Let's see.
That's one answer.
Tiny number in 3D. Okay, it's, I'm sorry, can you say that? I was trying to get myself situated. Can you say that one more time, please?
For your panel family, you explaining how to visualize, right? For the joint, that which side of your panel joint, right? Or maybe I'm understanding wrong. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think I'm still not understanding what you're saying. To visualize.
For them, so are you answering the question for this one?
Oh, I thought I was. Somebody had answered that Revit already displays numbers adaptive, so you can tell which is which. So I was just going to show some examples for this. So let's see. Can we have a curtain panel family to have 4 joint sides labeled as?
This is for mass. So not adaptive panel, but yeah, one he's already mentioned to me how is the adaptive panel showing the joint side, like which number joint 1 is like which one is showing a small number when you're looking at the 3D view, like what you're showing just now.
Okay.
My original question is for the mask, when you use mask for panel modeling.
So you want to have a different color for the side?
Yeah, because for for the side that you set the offset, you usually have inside the property, you have the offset setting, joint 1 quarter inches, joint 2 quarter inches, right?
Right.
But we a lot of times that we confusing which one is joint 1, which one is joint 2 for the up and down, or
Right.
the
Okay.
left and right.
Perfect. So that
For
is
the
what
left.
this. So it's in the adaptive family though, that the points are called out. So that's what this is supposed to help you see, that between point 1 and point 2 is where joint 1 is the joint 1 adjustment is going to take place. Between point 2 and point 3 is the joint 2 in this case. So when you're in, let's go back to, let me open up, is it on this one? No. Let's open up.
What I like to do on these when I don't know which joint is which is just set it to some ridiculous number like 6 inches so that you can obviously see which one moved, and then set it to what you really want if there's any confusion.
Okay, well here's an example. Also, so here's an example. I didn't even, I've got one open. So this three-sided, this is a 3-point. So here's the numbers already showing up, right? So when you pick on it, you can see that from 1 to 2, this would be joint 1. From 2
Yeah,
to
that's what I like to see in the math. But yeah, I understand, Jack, the ideas. I also try that method too, but still we are need to spending some time for like try out which side if it's wrong or right. But yeah, we should not doing that, right? So it will be more clear for drafter if you already label 1, 2, 3, 4 on the panel family for the math. So I don't know if it's possible.
So what I understand from Amy, if the joint is like number 1 between 1 and 2, 2 is 2 and 3. So the lower number will be the joint number, or the lower number of the nodes will be the joint number on that face. Correct?
That's not always the case, because if it's folded,
yeah.
then your joint 1 will go from 1, 2, and 3. And then your joint 2 would be from 3 to 4.
Yeah,
that kind of
that's
thing.
exactly
So
right.
it's not always going to be the lowest number of the points.
So here's an example, right? So here's from 1, this is what Zach's talking about. So from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3, this is all considered joint 1. And the way that works, yeah. And it's based on some like offsets and points in this thing.
So you mean you are, because we are considering this, even though it is an adaptive family, you are considering 1, 2, and 3 all are on one plane? I don't know.
This is just, so there's no up or down with adaptive families, right? They can go in any direction, right? So that's why we didn't label them. Yeah, so that's why it has to be like joint 1. So that's what this document is supposed to help kind of explain.
My question is, what if like I want on that like a 3 to 4 panel, I need like a joint, separate joint on 1 and 2 and 2 and 3.
Well, we probably would have to figure out, I mean, I guess we could not tie those together.
It is better to like keep a separate joint for each face,
so you think,
each side.
So you would say that this folded panel would, well, because you're talking about it like being notched, right? Like it's basically stepping up.
Suppose that point is little up, and on that side, I need like a different joint. In case, I'm not sure whether we need that or not, but we may need.
I mean, we could do that. Yeah, if it ends up being a problem, I mean, we can always say joint 1, joint 2, joint 3, joint 4, joint 5, joint 6.
Why I'm insisting, you know, because why I'm insisting when we have like when we put like 6 nodes and we have flexibility to define each joint separately, why we cannot put? We can keep the same number if you don't want. But I would like the same logic, you know, between 1 and 2, joint 1. 2 and 3, joint 2, like that.
Yeah, I mean,
that is my suggestion.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with me going back and changing that parameter to not be tied to that, and we can just have them go all the way around. If it needs to be able to be adjusted that way.
Zach, what is your point?
That's
Zach,
fine.
what do you say?
That's easy.
When we have flexibility, we can like hold the information.
Well, it's fine to have flexibility, but you also want it to be easy to use for the common scenarios. So I think having an extra parameter for each of those may complicate it.
No, why? But it will make like a little.
Because if I wanted to set a quarter joint around this whole thing, which is probably the common situation.
Yes.
Right now it's 4 numbers, and you're wanting to increase it to 6.
No, default will
Yeah.
be
And then we have this one.
yeah, default will be
Or that one.
Dang.
4 numbers go to 12 or whatever.
And one, yeah.
But-
One thing.
But
Oh,
I
sorry, go
mean,
ahead.
if that's needed, we could make a new family if that ever is needed. But
oh my god. Yeah, instead of that, what I'm saying actually, let us keep like the same scenario. So even it will be easy for us also to remember, okay, 1 and 2. So 1 is the joint number 1, 2 and 3 is a joint number 2, like that. And the default value always we can keep like a 3/4 or standard joint size, and we can change whichever we want. Only so we have to worry about that joint only, so that is that is my the way I'm looking actually.
Okay, so noted. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Not necessary to like change it.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, we'll have to see. Again, this is all still pretty new, and even recently there's a new version of the basic flat panel families where they don't have child in them anymore. So we'll just keep going with it for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I want to. Okay, I'll move around some of these other ones, but the mass one, I want to get back. I want to understand from. It sounds like having a color in the mass itself. But anyway, could you apply the paint to surfaces of an in-place generic model so the paint team could take that element? Okay, so potentially.
Jessica just tried that and it does work. You could make an in-place panel, in-place generic model to do it.
Does it have the parameters in it? So that's where I was going. It has to have the parameters, as far as I know, Zach, in a family for it to be recognized by the takeoff program. Is that correct or not?
She just tried it. She added that parameter, the is WW panel parameter.
Yeah, I added the parameters and from the shared parameters on the server.
So yay,
okay.
Bonus functionality that I didn't plan for.
Yeah, so I mean, the main thing just from that presentation and in the document is it has to have those parameters tied to it and painted properly and no zero, all zero fillets. If you just follow those main rules, then you can, if you can do an in-place family, or model, that's great. I try to emphasize using families where you can, obviously, because if you just go in and update it, it updates everywhere. But there's always a case where you have to do some in-place stuff. So that's good to know for sure.
I wouldn't want to encourage you to do this way. I would much rather you use a pre-made, well-tested, battle-ready panel that's been made by Amy and the panel team before pulling that lever, because that lever is fraught with peril. There's almost zero chance that you'll get everything correct on it, and it'll definitely come back to you to add parameters to it, or you missed coloring faces or whatever. So definitely use the existing families first. And if your panel is so complicated that you do want to pull that lever, we should probably talk about it, because you're probably overcomplicating the panel.
Well, that's a good point. I think talk to the panel team, because they're the ones dealing with they're the downstream customer, right? So I would say as these things come up, just, check with them, right?
Yeah, whatever you're planning, they're going to have to do more in Inventor. So you might as well just do it all in Inventor and leave the panel simple.
Next question of just embedding a panel team person with every project.
Yeah, I think we've definitely talked about that. It's just like any of the other, just like as these team does their thing, or if we have a panel person who specializes in all the panel stuff, or a panel team, that their focus is that, then you get that consistency on every project as well, and not as many people need to understand how to do the tool, right?
You do realize there's only 4 of us, right?
Yes, there's only 4 of us.
So how are we going to have a panel guy on
We
the
just drafters? When the panels are modeled right to begin with, it makes the rest of your job easier.
Yeah, so Jessica.
In theory.
Yeah.
Jessica, in continuation with your concern, in-place panel, that is useful to if you want to drive the transition or ends or something like that, we can put that, but it is only for like a 3D detail and for the panel team, and let them design their panel in Inventor, right?
Well, I mean, the only reason I brought that up is because I just know sometimes we end up in situations where last minute we brought a panel in, or it's kind of a weird shape, and it's a lot of grief to get the family, especially if the person Who
I
has
do
to
that actually. I do that, but I'm putting on my model, and they will look at that when they are coming
It
to
was
that
just
point.
like proof of concept. If you really end up with your back against the wall, you can, with this method, use a generic model.
It's good to know that it works, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like you can't ask one of us to like help you on something if it's needed. But as far as assigning a panel guide to a building as a drafting resource is something that needs to be discussed, I think, later down the road. But that doesn't mean that I'm right in the next few months. I assume I'm going to train my team, Sherman's team, at least our panel group, to do whatever it is or know what I've been learning in Revit. So we'll all be able to at least help out for the most part, but I don't know if it's so much, it's going to go so far as us getting assigned to a building to start modeling panels, because that's going to take up a lot of our production time as well.
When I was saying that earlier, I was thinking like, personally, I was thinking like somebody in drafting, like a drafting.
No, I'm not saying to like use that to when you have to go over the model, but I can generate the 3D detail and I can put in the shop drawing using like a in-place model. You know what I mean to say? That can help you guys. Or because, you know, as for example, on my project, I always discuss with Shavin, hey, I'm thinking something like this on this area. Are you agree with that or something like that? And then, yeah, I'm modeling that area with a generic like in-place model to more understanding, to be on the same page.
So right now we really want to keep it as simple as possible. We want to make sure that the joints are correct, the measurements for the profiles are correct, and that the miters are all correct as much as possible. And then we're still going to do a lot on our end and the Inventor side. We're not at the point yet where we want the drafting team to make perfect panels in Revit. We want it as accurate as we can get it. So as long as we're keeping to the basics, we're good.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, remember the drafting team is the bottleneck, so make it easy for the drafting team to do these panels and get generically what you want, and then all the refinement process happens by the panel team and the people who know.
Yeah, I'm
exactly
on the
what they
same
want
page.
there.
I'm on the same page, but if I want to put some more information, I can put like in-place model.
Yeah, if you're going to do bonus modeling just for your own shop drawings for details, yeah, sure, go ahead, have fun.
Yes,
but not everyone's going to be doing 3D models on their shop drawings.
So so that is what I'm saying actually. You know, it's because see, if you don't have the fun, then shop drawing will be the boring process, man.
Yeah, if you want to spend more time making sure the detail's correct.
Yeah, I know.
As good as it gets.
And sometimes it will explain more actually, you know, how what that panel how it is ending and all those things. Anyway.
So there's a couple other good things up here like, that I want to touch on that are good questions. So first, I'll do this pink one first. What's the best file format to import Inventor panels back into Revit model? Somebody answered, we're not doing that anymore. It has a lot of problems. I would also say you have to want to know why would you do that. So if you have a tool that represents it properly for the shop drawings and for the data and all of that in Revit, and then you go to Inventor, you have to remember that if you want to bring it back into Revit, you're now completing a circle back to that, but are you getting any benefit from it? So you know, I know a lot of people talked about that in the past a lot with Revit, is do it in Inventor and bring it back into Revit. And you have to just look at your threshold of change. And then if anything changes in those parts and you put them in Inventor and then you want to bring them back into Revit because they've been updated, I mean, you can get yourself into a real nightmare of change. I'm always thinking about change management. Where's the threshold of when you're modeling and you've put this data and information out there and now it's gone past that threshold and there's revisions, how far back do you go? Or do you say we're not going back, we're only going forward? And then you also have to just, I mean, that's the biggest thing is change management. Like if we get revisions, because we always do, how much do we want to be able to move forward and not have to go backwards and stymie any other project that's moving forward? But also when I say the best format, it's like shrink wrapping and all this stuff to try to get from Inventor back into Revit, just to answer that part. There's a lot of different methods and they don't come with the data necessarily, and they're heavy and they can make your Revit file heavy in my experience. So I never really condoned going that route unless it was absolutely essential for some reason. And I'm only going to do that on one project. And so we can comment on that, but I did want to make sure this one here too, as I thought was good, was would it be easier to make a tool to select just the surfaces you want to take off to notice? So that's a good question. And somebody answered that there are templates already painted. So you're not doing that very often. That sounds like that's based on some of those guys that have been working with their experience. It's probably one of those things that's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, and you don't want to forget it. So if it comes with everything already painted, it's better to have too much data, I would say, than maybe not enough. So I don't know, anybody, you know, if you want to comment, other people want to comment on either of those. I just thought those were good little tidbits.
Yeah, a tool could be made for that to make that easier. We could even change it so that you paint the faces you want to keep rather than paint the faces you want to ignore. But again, yeah, these are families and they don't really, these don't get made that often. It's a parapet profile per job, maybe, typically.
I'm working at a garage right now that has 1, 2, 3, 4 different parapet profiles.
Yeah, so like literally it doesn't take that long. I don't know if the bang for the buck is there in making a tool just for that.
I guess
4 times every 4 months isn't that much.
It's easy for them to find out when it's missed and just say, oh, remove this, and it doesn't seem like that big of a deal.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
In what situations would you create a mass versus the curtain wall? And somebody had answered creating a mass is generally used for placing panels, specific object families. A curtain wall is used for mainly mullions, glazing, and cinder covers. That's true. Again, and as I mentioned, but I know I rushed through my demo because I had a half an hour. Just think about how many surfaces are interacting with each other. If you have something where you've got a wall that turns a corner outside, and then it goes to an inside corner, and then it goes to another outside corner. If you make that a mass and you put your panels on it, and then later on the walls have to move because something changed, you just edit the mass and tell the curtain panels, the system to update to the face, and all your outside and inside corner families, if they wrap around, would update. So there's benefit to that. Or you could make them individual curtain walls and just move them. So it's really, you can use either tool and put these metal panel, curtain panel families in them. You just want to strategize, what if something changes? What if a dimension changes? Am I setting it up to be easier or harder to update later? Is my opinion on that one. Can we add more than one extrusion in one panel for parapet? Yes. So that goes back to the eyebrow.
You can, but I don't encourage it.
Yeah, Amy, I was gonna say that
it's pretty bad for the panel group.
Yeah, if it does that, because normally when there's a separate panel inside of a parapet, it's normally a clip. And so if it gets put inside the family, then it's run as a full length piece. And so now we have a bunch of stock length parts when we only need pieces.
Yeah.
So,
or you're talking about.
That's why I was questioning this actually. You know?
Like that eyebrow thing that you just pulled up, Amy.
Yeah, that's
like it has 3 panels in one family.
Right.
It's bad for several reasons for the panel group. It's harder for them to put fab numbers on each one. It's harder for the key sheet because the key sheet treats it as one object. So there's 3 mark numbers on one object. So they can't really arrange the mark numbers so that it's obvious to the field which mark number is which panel. There's a lot of reasons to not do this.
Okay, so sorry about
but
that.
You can.
I was not aware.
But you can.
Nobody told me. Nobody told me
I,
about that. I thought this was okay to do. Sorry.
it worked for the time being. It's just that once
good for
we
the
started
future.
putting mark numbers, it wouldn't allow us to separate the mark numbers so we know which panel is what. So it's not that you made a mistake. We just didn't know how it was going to come out.
No, I just feel silly now because I was like, oh, you can do this or whatever. But what I would say though, okay, so I mean that's all whatever. That's all fine. I just sorry for misleading everybody.
No, actually, I changed my all the families. That's why I asked, hey, did I do like extra work or what actually?
So here's the thing then, like what we've talked about, like this type of family makes it really fast for the drafters to be able to get a long run of panels. In Matilda, when we first did it in sales, we had a mass. So Daniel had built a mass that represented this profile. And then he did place these as individual panels using our flat curtain panel family, and he made some custom ones, which works great. And these are all individual families. The problem with that could be, not the problem, the issue, the downside, I guess, or whatever I'm trying to say, be diplomatic, is if that profile changes, because now it's gone to drafting, they have to update the mass and change out these different, update it to what it's really supposed to be. And that can be a much longer process for drafting, especially with these eyebrows that wrap all the way around the building. So if we're saying this is not a great way to go, even though it's faster for drafting, the option is they have to build masses and apply stuff to faces most likely to get these sloping stuff. So.
I don't even know how drafting you'd be able to get your different panels into the right height if they were all separate.
It's a lot more work. That curtain panel.
To the point that if it's a tiny inconvenience to the panel team, it might not be worth changing that process.
It's not just the panel team, it's the field team too.
Then is there some way to...
We can't tell what mark number goes to which panel.
Right, and you have to have the elevations in your shop drawings, right, for your panels.
What if there was a family made of 3 different families? Then would the mark numbers be easily separated?
No, it's still one tag. It's still one object, so when you place the tag on there, it's just going to read the mark numbers as one property and just display it. So it's an unordered, like you can't tell between panels like which mark number is the front one, which one's the middle one, which one's the bottom. It's kind of a mess unless you're sitting there in the field and you find one of these things and then you see what shape it is and then you can deduce which one is top and bottom. Like it's just bad for the field, for the panel people, everyone. It's not good. You can model that as a mass and use multiple families, or you can use multiple walls or multiple lights on the same wall.
But if you model it as a mass, and at some point the slope slightly changes, now you have to fix it whole mass. Versus if you have it as a bunch of walls where it's just hosted to the face of the wall and there's some slight change like that, it's really easy. You just edit the profile.
Instead of that, I would like to use like slope glazing wall, and at the bottom Soffit area, I come up with that concept, and it is very easy. I did it with like in Ardenwood. So Soffit area, it is very easy to like design with slope glazing wall. I get rid of like all mass. Instead of mass, everything we can, most of the thing we can do it with the curtain walls.
Yeah, so that'll be good stuff to explore for sure then. I'm so sorry, I didn't know that was the problem. And I'm just saying, I hate to mislead everybody like that. These are panels that are placed on masses, and at these outside corners, he had to lay out and do adaptive parts. So it's definitely was a lot more work to get this in there. And then, like we're saying, to update it, you'd have to change that mass profile all the way around. So that sounds like a good thing that we need to look at. We'll look at the sloped glazing and some good stuff there to make that work better for everybody involved, for sure. Can the tool be set to so that you are alerted if you are drawing a panel that is too large to be made? So right now, and this was answered, that the panel families have a parameter indicator built in. It's just a big red X. Again, I went through that pretty quickly in the demo, but if it exceeds, there's a formula in those panels families that if it exceeds the max sheet size for normal pricing, it will turn on a red X. And we purposely made the choice to not be able to turn that red X off. We could have added it as a visibility option, but we decided to just make sure it stays there. And we can work on that, like if you don't want it to print or something like that, maybe there's something that we can do. But it doesn't mean the panel can't be made. It just means it's going to cost more, which is what we're looking at sales. As far as whether it can be made or not, I'm not sure what the extents are. Maybe we have a different kind of indicator when it's like, oh, we can't even make this at all. But I'm not sure what that would be, like a Sherwin or panel team question as far as what the limits are. So for too large to be made. Why will panels be made in Revit and not Inventor? No, they're made in Revit to make it easier, definitely. Inventor, again, like I was saying earlier, I feel like Inventor and these other tools we have are way better for fab than Revit. I've tried making parts and stuff in Revit and doing drawings, and it's tedious, and I just don't think it's made for it. It's made for design and concept and data and clash detection and, you know, analyzing for sun and, you know, climate or, you know, what all that stuff, but it's not really the best for fabbing. Let's see. Can we have a video for masses that slope in the near future and how to properly edit them? Yeah, we can, if we want to have another mass training class on mass, we can do that. I don't know if James wants to put that down again. We did one before. It didn't, I had some problems with it because I was using, wasn't using the best project file for it. But we can definitely do another massing training just to really understand how to go about building one and what matters. Return legs and some surfaces underneath need to be silicone compatible, so not sure what all the yellow painted surface is telling you. The yellow just cuts out the extra faces points, so the takeoff program reads only the exterior, right? It's just meant for geometry at this point. Geometry to ignore. Can I add our own parameters in Parapet panels to make panel more flexible? Yeah, if you want to make, you know, again, we're trying to stay to the library, and if you have suggestions on how to improve on what's in our library, I would say that would be the best route to go. Is like, if you have a good idea and you want to add your own parameters that you think you and other people can benefit from, let's submit that idea. Let's get it, you know, get those things in. There's all kinds of stuff floating around right now from everybody that's been working with these panels about what we could do to improve them.
Sometimes, you know, it is a similar shape, but have different dimension and all those things.
Right.
I'm talking about project specific, you know, requirement.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't see an issue if you want to add more to it to make it do more. That's project specific, yeah. And I would say a lot of stuff, if it's dimension flexing, I usually try to put those under dimensions.
But maybe we should just like have a process to copy any, you know, any panels made from a project to like a folder somewhere that, you know, if we end up with building A or B, then we can pull from whatever the final product was.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, we've got a library of basic starting stuff. You're going to get the basic starting stuff for the most part from a sales model, unless we have something that's really crazy. We'll take the time to if we can, to make it be more what it's supposed to be. But once you get those custom ones going, yeah, I would say that's a good idea to keep it all in one place.
My question was for particularly like instance parameter, the depth of the panel or something like that. Will it affect the takeoff process because it is in the same family? It means I have two different dimensions now. You know,
I don't think. Yeah, that's what's so great about when Zach found that paint surface thing, because I was trying to figure out how in these families that get more complicated with more twists and turns, how to assign parameters and all that stuff, and like, how are we going to be able to pull this data? We don't even, none of that matters. All that matters now is the painting the surfaces and having those 5 parameters. So you can add anything else you want, and I don't think the takeoff program won't care.
I was just wondering for the type, so because they are adding different type of panel while in the takeoff, so it will generate a different type, right? If it is a different dimension, is that correct, Zach?
I'm not sure I understand. Like,
that reminds
they have 5, there's 5 parameters that they can put into Revit on each of the panels that tell it stuff like elevation, panel type, subtype, and fab number. So, and then the takeoff program also reads the geometry of the unpainted panel faces. So the panels get categorized by all those different pieces of data by its geometric shape and the other 5 parameters.
This does bring up something that Jared had mentioned, though, because it is different profiles, which is, I think, what Katan is getting at, is that there's a profile that might be flat, and then there's a profile that might have 2 bends and 3 bends and 4 bends. And I think, Jared, you could speak to this if you're there, they were saying it would be potentially nice to know if it is a new profile. Like, as the drafters modeling these and making new shapes, having it be identified as a unique profile would help them, because they're sorting through all that data. Right, Jared?
Yeah, having it identified somehow as a unique profile so that we do know when it changes, so we can kind of sort them out a little more. But I think that's something we're going to work on a little later in the process.
Yeah. We'll discuss that.
Yeah. We'll have to come up with the best way to prioritize and sort profiles.
Yeah, I made it very generic, so it doesn't. The takeoff program right now has no awareness of profile shapes, but I think it can know the profile shapes, and it could sort or categorize the panels based on their profile shape. So all your parapets would end up as the same category, that kind of thing. Or in Jessica's case, 4 different categories. But yeah, that's just something it doesn't do yet, but I think it could with a little bit of coding.
Yeah, it has potential for sure.
Sure.
Yeah, it would definitely help those guys. So another one here, how to create a soffit if it's more than 1 panel deep. And there was an answer to add joints to make it show more panels than just 1. So yeah, this is a potential, like the soffit that I did, it's a family that isn't, the way that one was hosted in just a little vertical curtain wall. So it's not necessarily like how I would always do soffits. Is if it just had a run of soffit panels and it's just 1 little band, I might use that tool. But we do have on some of the other projects, you know, big underside areas where there's lots of panels, right? And so maybe you have a mass or something and you have a face and you make a curtain system, apply that flat panel, and that's where you would add in the grids. Just add more joints, which is what this sticky is saying right here, is add more joints. So if it's a curtain system and you've put a flat panel in it and you want to add joints, that would just be adding those curtain grids potentially. But not the one that I showed you.
The curtain systems aren't as rigid in Revit as a curtain wall. Curtain walls in Revit have to be vertical. But with a curtain system, it can be in any orientation, even pointing downward. So you can make a mass. She can put panels on the bottom face of that mass, no problem. And it's the same panel that you would use on a vertical face or a sloped face.
So it would just be, pretend this is your soffit. Let's go into edit mass mode. And I'm just going to tab till I have the bottom surface. Oh, wait, I don't have to do that. First, I have to say, not in the mass. Oh, what am I doing? You want to discard changes? Yes, you don't have to be in edit mask for the moment. Sorry. Architecture, and then where's our curtain system? So select that face and say create system. So now we have a curtain system on the bottom. And if we just switch that out with our flat panel, and then we could just add some joints, some curtain grids. You know, now we're making a soffit with multiple panel sizes.
Yeah, it works the same way as it does on a vertical surface.
So massing can be handy.
The only problem with the mask, you know, if we have to change the overall size of the mask, then it will lose all the grids. Means the grids will be disturbed. We have to again realign all the vertical grids. That I realize. I don't know other people have realized that or not. You know.
Sounds a lot like curtain walls when you move the sill and all the horizontals move on you.
Yeah, but this any side, you know, so it is like a pain. We have to put all the thing again.
Okay, so are you saying that you're losing these grids?
You have to regenerate that and.
Oh, because they're sets. Let's see. So let's see. Let's do this.
Yeah, you put a parameter to say the length of those sides.
Oh my goodness.
Right? You have a parameter that sets the lengths
of
the returns.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah, because this guy's short. Yes. Thank you, Zach. My brain's kind of fried.
Yeah, I know.
So here's what I would say is like, yeah, it's set. So what do we have? We're at 8'10" right now. Whatever.
But yeah, those curtain grids got moved. So yeah, you need to stretch it out.
Yeah.
So, or stretch out the middle panel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So those are the things.
You have to move the grids so that the flat panel gets bigger. That's what the grids kind of moved when you stretched it out. So
yeah, so that could probably be, you know, we could probably look at that. This is where an adaptive family would stretch with it, but the problem with that is that you have to pick all those points to get that. So I just really try to not use adaptive if we don't have to. I like them, but
so that's why I know the curtain walls are like is a good solution so far. For my experience. Yeah.
So that would just be coming in here, architecture, build wall. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, that's why it's nice. Either one works. So if you just want to have a wall and you're finding that this is the judgment call that you have to make, right? So make it 20 feet tall or whatever. We can still switch it out. Put our flat panel in there and then split it up. Yeah, so if your situation is better to use that, either one works. Fast way to build a wall. Let's see. I think we got to all of these.
We're almost to 1 o'clock, so
okay.
There's 4 more minutes. So thanks again, Amy, and the panel team, and the rest of the panel. I'm gonna unmute everyone so you can all stop chewing for a second, whatever pupusas you happen to be eating, and we can cheer again.
Woo! Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Good job.
Thanks,
Good job.
Guys.
Good job, man.
Great work on panel.
Thanks.
Guys, thank you.
That's great.
All right, muting everyone again. All right, so we'll be back here tomorrow. That was a really good session. Thank you. Hope everyone learned something. You got to see a little bit of the panel process. I know the panel process is pretty mysterious to everyone that's not involved with it. And now we've discarded the old panel process and we have this whole new one. So don't worry that you don't know the panel process. Now it's all new and no one knows it fully. So we can all start over. Yeah, we can all start over and learn the new panel process and make it exactly the way we want it to be, because we're starting from scratch basically. So it's all really good stuff.